I'm setting up the Harb-13 to be baked out to mesh. And so I wanted to do some testing, so I figured I might as well just record this little part so people can see again how this process is done, going from the SDF to an animatable mesh, or a better way of putting it, a renderable mesh. In other words, something that once the object is assembled and rigged, will play well with the animation system, as well as with the rendering and everything like that. So I pulled them apart just as ARM. Remember, I had said in the earlier videos that I do everything by hierarchy. So I can pull out the upper arm and just pull that out as a unit instead of all the individual little pieces that make up the upper arm. Same thing with the lower arm, but all I'm going to do in the video right now is just the upper arm, just so the video is brief, because it's basically the same. It's literally the same process that I do for every single piece. The only piece that's going to take some finagling is going to be the overall head, which is probably going to be separate from the cockpit shielding thingy here. But I'll figure it out, because it seems like it's going to be a complex render or bake out, but actually there's a lot of open space, so it may not be as much as I think it's going to be. So I have to finagle that one a little bit. So what we're going to do is, so I have the bounding box here. This is the bounding box that does all the baking, right? And so we have that already positioned around our object, and I just try to remove as much, as I said in my other vids, try to remove as much empty space as possible, so there's no additional calculations being utilized. Kind of the same thing when it comes to like GPU rendering. You don't want to have that extra stuff in your extra composition or anything, because it'll calculate that, right? It'll just take a little bit longer. That's always been my view, and I believe a lot of the processes I do right now are GPU based when it comes to the bake out. When I usually go out for poly, sometimes I rarely go out to 100, right? Because it's going to come in very extreme. So like at 20, let's say a density at 20, I think of that as percentage. It's going to come, just this arm alone is going to come in at 50 million. But it gets stripped down. We're going to strip it. It gets stripped down. It goes from 50 million down to 5,000, literally. But we start off with, hey, we want to have a 1-to-1 with the STL. So a 1-to-1 with the STL is going to be in the millions. For instance, a true 1-to-1 is going to be 5, right? 5,750,000,000, or 5, whatever this number is, 5,750,000,000. Okay, like that. So we never want to do anything like that. I don't even want to see this number. I don't want to see that number. All right, I don't want to see that number. Okay, so I bring it down to 20. 20 is operable. 50 million, my machine has no issue doing 50 million. It's spot on when it does it. We'll actually just go ahead and say generate poly, right? And this is just the basic smoothing and stuff I have set up for it. Use mirror. So since I used mirror a lot in the model, this actually matters, because I didn't for the Wild Walker I didn't use mirror a lot, right? But I used mirror throughout this whole entire piece, which is cool, because when it comes out to the bake, everything I do when I mesh this out, this mirrored side, this part of the object out, the mirrored side automatically gets baked out too. So, I get a 2-for-1 sale basically on the whole thing. All right, so let's go to let's go generate high poly, right? And we're just gonna let it calculate. Okay, the generate poly, yeah, this is GPU based right now, so it's running on the GPU. On one of the GPUs right now, which is always good. We like when processes are on the GPU. It's calculating right now. We like when processes are on the GPU, because it goes so much faster. The GPU has so much more overhead than the CPU ever could have. We want to stay off our CPU when it comes to any 3D. We want to stay off our CPU for everything. Okay, post work, off the seat, only on GPU, rendering only on GPU, modeling only on GPU, baking out only on GPU. All we needed the CPU for is to keep the operating system going. Okay, so now we have this is basically what I call the one-to-one, right? And this is the full mesh. Okay, now it is dense. Now this is the 50 million, just so we can take an eyeball-y. Okay, that's how dense it is. It's black, right? We never need to use it, but what it does though, at 20, we don't need to go any higher than this. What it does though, it gives us a very accurate shape, as accurate as we need in an optimal way, right? All of these things are what they call the chunks. So when it baked all this out, it's just like in GPU rendering. If anybody remembers early stages of Blender rendering with cycles, when we would have like multiple boxes up and stuff like that per GPU or per what do you call bucket running around on the screen. It's basically the same thing, and it breaks everything down into individual parts. So it's kind of like that. Makes everything a little bit more easy to process. But we can clean it up, and so we're going to clean up the chunks, and it has like a basic smoothing angle setup that I like. So the cleanup chunk thing is just going to combine them all. So let's do that real quick. And that happens pretty fast. We'll just look at it in the mesh form right now. Because some people may be like, why use SDF? Well, outside of the blending of the forms and all the other stuff that I showed, is the simplicity when it comes to actually making it out to mesh. Now, we're not making a bendable character, right? This is for mechanical objects or machinery that's going to be hierarchically linked or rigged in a hierarchical manner. So we're not trying to put subdivision surfaces on this or anything like that, right? So we cleaned up all the chunks, and so this is the final operable mesh, not operable, cleaned up chunk mesh, right? But we want it even simpler than this. Okay, so let's go on down, and we're going to keep it in. In this window here, so we can see how well it works. Now we're going to break it down to 5,000 polys. So 5,000 polys is my optimal part polygon count, right? Not the millions, but in the 5,000 is my optimal part. So let's say with a wild walker, each of his limbs is roughly 5,000 polygons, no matter what's on the limb. Okay, he can have all kind of little appendages and stuff. That's all a part of the geometry. And that whole limb from ankle to knee is going to be 5,000 polys, and so on and so forth. The only thing that's going to be heavier is going to be the heads, right? So the heads of all these units are very complex and usually much, much heavier. So we're just going to say, let's go in my quad remesher here, and let's just remesh it. And we have on a depth quad count. So what it's going to do, it's going to actually create more edges in the seams to create a better transition between. So a better blends in the seams, which is what we want, instead of it being blobby, right? We don't want to be we don't want the polygons evenly distributed, because then it ignores like, hey, this is like a 90-degree angle or something close to it, right? And it's calculating right now. I always like this part. There you go, there you go. And we can pull them off here just for this demonstration. So let's so we can see what's going on here. Right? So he just doesn't have smoothing on him right now, but we'll put him on in the last part. At this point, what? Oh, can I do a right click? Nope. Yeah. Okay. So at this point, this is, well, I don't know with the, oh no, don't do that. I pulled it from the wrong thing. So either stage, like here, let me just put some smoothing on them. Here, all depending. So either the first stage, let's say if you were doing 3D printing, the first stage before we get down to the quad remeshing, because the quad remeshing is what I'm using, is the beginning process for making things ready for render, right? Because you don't want to be rendering like a 50 million part. You don't want to be bringing in like a trillion, polygon character into this. No, that's crazy. But the early stage, the first stage though, when we were in the 50 million and stuff like that, that's where we're looking. These are what we call airtight polygonal structures. So, or watertight polygonal structures. So it'd be great for 3D printing and stuff. So let's say, for instance, this whole entire Harb-13 can be as is, once parted out, can be exported out for 3D printing once maybe some minor adjustments are made. But it can be, if the ball sockets are set up properly for snap joints and everything like that, made for 3D printing. So we're already at that stage. But now we in the first bake out of the mesh. But now we're in the second stage now. So now we're going towards animation. So we used quad remesher, and so we're in this world, right? So the mesh now has dropped down to this is 5,000 polys. Okay, that's all that is now, is 5,000 polys. All right, and let's go back in again, and then now we're just going to strip it, right? And you see it's holding together. Here you see this is the original. Back here, this is the original SDF, and this is the 5,000 poly, and that's pretty daggone good. He's going to be seen at basically at a range. Let's say if we're modeling for camera, he's going to be seen at a range like this, which is basically pretty damn close. And this is not surfaced or lit or anything, right? So that's great. Now let's go. Now we're going to strip them all the way down. So what I usually say is, hey, I don't need a lot of these flat spaces. I don't need when it comes to the geometry. So let's get rid of them. Okay. So now we're totally going towards a renderable mesh, right? So then I go down to my tried and true B mesh, and I have my own personal settings set up for it. And let's rock and roll on it. And you're going to see it's going to strip it, and it already did it. That was too fast. I didn't have enough time to gab. And you already see it stripped it down. You already see that we have now open areas. You see back there, even down here, right? I know you can't see because of the box, but you see you have these open areas now that do not have a zillion polygons running through them. And you see some of the polygons have been stripped across. Okay, right? So it tries to remove any unnecessary polygons. And now we are running, I don't know how much this one is, but we are running pretty daggone good. We are way under 5,000. Well, probably like around 4,000 or 3,000, just a little bit. And let's just take a look back at it in the mesh here. And then look, back at it again. And look, that's pretty damn close. And it's under 5,000 polygons, right? The only reason why the window is chugging is because I have the whole entire SDF mesh in here, right? Or SDF file in here, okay? So that's basically it. And so this is the process I use. And then once again, both sides are being done at the same time. You see over there? So both sides are being done at the same time. And then all I do is, as I showed in the other videos, all I do is once I get everything done, then I just separate the left from the right, and then just reassemble the model like a toy, and then get them set up for rigging inside of Lightwave, which I will make an animation for that, for the rigging part. Again, because this is gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool to see the Harb-13 rigged and with the test animation, because he's not gonna walk like a regular thing. It's gonna be a real fun, cool thing for him. So I want to make a video on that. But in either case, this was just a basic testing and a walkthrough of the SDF to mesh process that I use, and how functional it is, and how it's, it can be applicable for a wide range of things. Okay, thanks.